Hey everybody, thanks for coming back to the Seashore Comfort Solutions podcast, HVAC Unfiltered. I'm Rich Ingalls, the owner of Seashore Comfort Solutions. We're coming to you live from Streamography here in Gloucester, Massachusetts with my boy Andrew.
What up?
He's always here to help out and kind of keep me at bay
When I can be,
from my tangents. Yeah.
when the season's not crazy, which I know both of us are juggling the crazy
It is. It
right
is.
now.
We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, where it's we could hear the train rumbling in the distance coming towards us, and it has arrived. Unfortunately, the weather isn't great, but we still have a lot of stuff coming in as far as estimates and heat pump machines going out the door like crazy.
Yeah.
We have a couple of good-sized projects coming up that are already on the books. We just completed a couple of good-sized projects. We're going to pretty much talk about a lot of that stuff today. Just go over some of the previous projects that we had, commercial, residential, and we'll talk about even going into like rebates and stuff available for current installations,
Yeah.
and hopefully continuing to get these same rebates.
I'll bring back like not even that's like really that much of an oldie, but I remember we were doing a little bit of video for you at Cape Ann Lanes.
Yep.
That was a fun little project, and we found some crazy old pickle jar.
Yeah.
Remember that up there? What did you end up doing, though? What is it you did?
We
At
ended
Cape
up.
Ann Lanes.
We took out they have a couple of hydrocoil units, actually three hydrocoil units with air conditioning condensers outside,
Yeah.
going to each machine. We ended up taking out all the hydrocoil units, putting new hydros in with heat pump coils in them as well, so we can use heat pumps to heat the space when it's 30 degrees and above, and then once we get below 30 degrees, then the oil fired kicks on and warms up the water for the hydrocoils. We could probably even run them lower than that as far as the heat pumps go, but once you get under a certain point, there's a balance point of where you're actually wasting money in electricity compared to how much you're using in oil. Once you hit that balance point, that's when you want to switch over to oil. But a lot of the newer heat pumps that are coming out are still capable of completely heating the houses and buildings even, into the lows, into the even 0 degree range type of deal, depending on insulation, all that stuff,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah. It was fun watching you guys do your thing at Cape Ann Lanes because that was a crazy space. You
It
guys had a
was.
lot going on.
Yeah, above a drop ceiling with catwalks and stuff,
Yeah,
and units hanging from Unistrut, and it was a challenge just getting the unit up into the ceiling because there was one 10-ton air handler that we ended up putting two condensers to on each circuit. Had its own separate circuit. Each circuit had its own separate condenser. And it was just like, we had to end up getting a different lift and taking the drop ceiling apart and then trying to lace the thing up in between sprinkler pipes and everything. It was a huge challenge.
Yeah.
But once it got up there, it was just like, all right, let's do the duct, let's get the piping done, whatever,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
And then another one we were talking about was, which I actually have done work myself as far as the video AV side of life at the Boston Peabody Marriott, right? That's the other
Yeah.
one you've been doing some work?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate with the Marriott. They had us come in and price out a job for the Grand Ballroom. They did a big renovation there, so there was I believe it was four 10-ton rooftops we ended up putting on for them on the during that renovation. It's all complete now, and they've had functions and stuff in there. The place it came out beautiful. They're really focusing on trying to make it into a 5-star hotel type of deal. So when they did that renovation, that kind of spurred on more renovations and more upgrades for, like, if you walk into the lobby, it's totally different than when you used to walk in there even a year or so ago. It used to feel like you were walking into an 80s hotel.
Yeah.
And now they really brought it up to date, as far as it's like a new place. We just got another project with them. We did one of the guest rooms with a Mitsubishi Hyper heat pump system, where before they had a conventional heat pump system with electric auxiliary heat in it, and it was beyond inefficient, but it was it was a small system that fit up above a, you know, a 10 or 11-inch ceiling. There was only a little bit of space. You know, when you walk into the hotel room, there's just that little chunk of ceiling before you get into the space. That's where they tuck the units in if they don't have the units in the wall, like on, you know, other hotels.
Yeah, yeah.
So we ended up putting the Mitsubishi in there, and then the condensers were delayed because of there was a whole bunch of political stuff going on. So they ended up keeping the condensers out floating in the ocean on a boat until everything kind of got settled, and then they said, okay, yeah, here you can have them. So now we finally got all the new stuff. So we'll be doing that sometime next week.
So walk me through that process. So you have a hotel like that kind of reach out to you because they heard good things about, because I know the landlord actually knew you all, and he was like, hey, you guys got to work with these people.
Yeah,
Seashore's great.
Yeah, he basically called and said, you gotta call these guys if you want to get pricing. We were up against other people when it came to pricing, but you know, I didn't have any inside info or anything. I priced it as we normally would, and we ended up getting the job, which was huge because I priced it to sell. I wanted to get in there because they have, you know, 40 some odd rooftops. They got a bunch of splits, a bunch of ductless stuff. So it's like there's plenty of work there to kind of keep you going.
And then when you're in, because I reflect back on like when I'm doing AV, right? Like what you plan is one thing, and then when you actually start getting into the work, it changes. Everything changes every single time.
100%.
How do you handle the changes? Like what's that? How do you handle the changes that arise on a commercial project like that?
I just take it in stride. I don't panic.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth it. If it takes me a little bit longer to do, it's going to take me a little bit longer to do. The price is the price, so you're not paying more. It just might, you know, the room's going to be down for another day or whatever.
Right.
But there was exactly that particular job too, where we put we got the old machine out, and then we had to run a new line set because it's a Mitsubishi with new refrigerator and all that stuff. We don't screw around. So we start figuring out the route of the line set, and it's all finished ceiling, popcorn finished ceiling. So, you know, we tell them we're going to have to poke some holes and stuff to see if we can get from here to there and get out to the roof where the condensers are and stuff. We ended up having to go through another guest room next to it before we got out to the outside. Every wall's a firewall, so anything that's going through the wall has to be, you know, sealed up and fire sealed with fire caulking and all that stuff. And we had to go through, I don't even know, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 into the closet. And then from the closet, we got out to the roof from the next guest room. So we ended up doing like, I don't know, it was like 9 walls, say, that we had to seal both sides of and fire caulk and all that stuff, which is like, oh my God.
Yeah. But you got to do it.
We got to do it, yeah.
It is what it is.
Right, right. You know, actually, even today.
You got to do it the right way.
This morning, I showed up at a job. It's a single head ductless that the guys are doing today. It's just we have one guy over there with a co-op, you know, because that's and the way I saw it, it was simple. But then they get there and they're like, oh yeah, you know, where they want the condenser, it's not going to work. There's a bush there. You know, so we ended up talking it out and going over it with the customer, and the customer's like, all right, well, I'll get rid of the bush. You know, so they chopped the bush out, all that. So now we end up
like this happened this morning.
This morning, yeah, that's why I got stuff all over my freaking pants. But it's just, you know, you gotta look at it and you gotta pivot. It's just like it's just like anything. It's like if you're driving down the street, you hit a detour. Got a detour.
You gotta take a right
no,
or
I
left,
can do
whatever it is.
Man.
Yeah.
You gotta go that way. There's no way around it. So yeah, it's the way I see it is we're all grown ups. We all can talk it out and figure out exactly what the best solution is to what the issue is that has come to
arise or
whatever. Yeah. And we just deal with it.
And there's nothing like when you're working with a client that just, as unfortunate as a pivot may be, they just get it. Like, talk me through the pivot, like, walk me through what we got to do, and I get it. If this is what we have to do to get the job done, and you're not raising the price on me.
Exactly.
That usually will be the thing that raises their blood pressure.
World, yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, but you do have some where you put them in, and if the machines don't react exactly the way that the customer is envisioning them, then it becomes an issue as far as like, what you know, they're basically saying, what can you do to help me? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I literally sized this correctly. I put it in properly. It works great, when it's 45 degrees out and you're running the heat, it might not run as great. It might overheat a little bit because it can't turn itself down enough. That's the issue that I'm running into with one customer, where the house is super tight, so it's like at 0 degrees, the maximum load on the whole house is like 20,000 BTUs. It's like nothing to heat the house. So we put in multi-zone ductless units, and one in each bedroom, a 6,000 BTU unit in each bedroom, which is more than adequate, but that's the smallest head we can get.
Yeah.
And then we did, I think there were 9,000 BTUs downstairs for the main living space that also conditions the lower living space, whatever. There's like a lower, and it's a
Like a
split entry
basement
type
almost.
of deal. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
basement,
yeah.
but it's finished,
Yeah.
And when it's 40 degrees out and she sets the heat to 67, it overheats to 70 because she only needs, say, 4,000 BTUs of heat, but the unit can only turn down to like 8,000 BTUs. So it's going to give you 8,000 BTUs whether you need it or not. So once it starts heating, it's already kind of overheated. You know what I mean? So it's
I see.
So the gap is a bit wider than it should be.
There's like a 3-ish degree difference or 4-ish degree difference.
It's almost like by the time, say you're trying to preheat a pan on the stove, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you only want to get it to medium hot. You crank it to 3/4 above medium just because you want it to warm up quick.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to 3/4 and then you turn it back down, it's already too hot. And then you can't recover it. You can't heat the pan's
gotta
already.
wait.
You gotta wait until you gotta wait longer for it to cool back off. And,
Yeah.
if it's 0 out, the things will track perfect all day. It'll sit right at 68 degrees,
Right.
just running at 75%, something like that.
Yeah, but how much of that is just having an understanding of the new system you're working with?
A
You know
lot
what I
of
mean?
it. A lot of it does.
Because you helped with the system in my house.
Yep.
And we just had to learn how to work with it.
Yeah, it's like
Like-
if it might take longer for it to warm up in the morning, but once it gets there, it'll carry that load constantly. It's not like it's running with its foot to the floor all day.
Right.
It just
As it
gets,
should be
right,
efficient.
exactly. You
Yeah.
just want to kind of cruise control. Just cruise at 70. If it gets to 69, it'll get on the gas a little bit and warm the space back up.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the whole idea now with these new machines. And a lot of people are in the mindset of, shut it off when you're not using it, turn it on when you need it. With some of the wicked tight houses, with these newer really tight houses, it might actually be a pretty good idea because the house doesn't lose heat very fast.
Right.
If you're losing heat at, 8,000 BTUs an hour and you have a 9,000 BTU unit in there, by the time it kicks on, it's already too much.
Right.
Right. It's like
That makes sense.
Yeah, the machines are
I'm
variable.
in an old house, and I know we lose heat a lot.
Oh,
right?
definitely, yeah. So your machine probably kicks on, it gets the house warm, and then it just never shuts off, but it just sits there at 70 degrees, but the thermostat never really satisfies because it's always losing heat.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah,
well, and that's like something where you explained to me how the thermostat placement makes such a big difference.
absolutely.
So on our first floor, it's like pretty much all open, so it was whatever. But on the second floor, the thermostat is in one of the bedrooms. That's not our main bedroom.
Yeah, it's the back left bedroom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're in the main bedroom. And I think it had to do with how wiring was snaking, or there was a reason we had to do it the way we did it. So it didn't cost more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's where the original stat was in the first
that's
place. So I
exactly
think we
it.
just attached to those existing wires.
And so I had to explain to Kelly that, when we have me, my wife, and, we got 2 little. So they are, they themselves are little ovens.
Yeah.
If we're all in the room at night, it heats up in here. Our body heat alone heats us up.
Exactly, yeah.
But then that other room is pretty much empty.
Yep.
So in the middle of winter, it cools so fast that it just gets hot. The equilibrium
And then
is
all
just
of a sudden, thermostat calls for heat.
Exactly.
And you guys are sweating in your bedroom because it's cold out there.
yeah.
You keep the door open in that thermostat room?
That's a good question. I think we do,
Yeah.
and we should close it.
No, you keep it. I would want to keep it open. But what we could do is we just put in a different thermostat with a zone sensor. Put the zone sensor in the master bedroom.
Oh, dude, I
And
lost
then-
the zone sensor
Oh yeah,
because we have an Ecobee.
you do have an Ecobee.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So if
Do
you
they have replacement zone sensors?
yeah,
I'm
two
sure
packs,
they do.
2 packs on Amazon. They're $80.
Yeah.
I pay the same price, so I don't. I tell my customers, it's like, yeah, if you want zone sensors,
Just go to
order them
Amazon.
yourself.
You'll get
Yeah,
it in a couple days. Oh,
exactly.
I forgot about the zone sensors.
Yeah, so you can actually make it so it doesn't look at the thermostat and just at the zone sensor. So if you feel your thermostat's in a bad location, if there's enough wires to power an Ecobee, then you can use a separate zone sensor and make it not even look at the stat
Right.
at all ever. You could put the stat in a closet anywhere.
I'm glad we've talked about that because I
Yeah.
totally forgot about that. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'll
So if
look
you have
into
an
that.
Ecobee, we can definitely do. Just all you got to do is get the zone sensor, pair it up with the thing, and then when you go into your comfort settings, you can click on home, and it'll say participating sensors, and you can add or remove sensors. You can say don't look at the zone sensor or don't look at the stat.
That I lost. The one that I lost. It gives me
Right.
an update every once in a while. Like, oh, hey, the zone sensor's not working.
Yeah.
But we just lost it. We have no idea
It's
where
probably
it went.
in a drawer somewhere, or the battery died.
Maybe, yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder.
I don't know. Maybe one of the
Most
kids
of the time
just
when
started
we put
eating
them
it.
in, I'll stick them in a place somewhere in the person's room. We talk about it first. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm
yeah.
going to put the zone sensor in here, but then I put it in there, and I don't tell them where it is, and they don't even notice that it's there. And
Yeah.
like even mine in my bedroom, mine's on my nightstand, looking straight at me, basically. So, because like when you don't move, it doesn't. It ends up not seeing you eventually because you got your blankets on and all that stuff. But if you have your arm out or whatever and it sees a 98-degree thing, it's going to know that the room is occupied and it's going to try to condition to that
interesting.
particular space.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can have
With all the little
mavericks and
humans we
stuff.
got, it'll know.
Yeah, exactly. And it
It'll
only
know
sees
we got something
humans. It won't
going on.
see animals or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah. So speaking of, as far as you helping me with my house, we were talking a little bit about mass save because my old system was an old system, like
Yep.
totally inefficient. It did its job for like 30 plus years. One of those one
Yeah,
of
it's
those
paid for
machines.
itself.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like when I was moving in, it was like, all right, let's replace this thing and take advantage of mass save, which you helped me to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have another project coming up that's taking advantage of mass save. The one today, is that right?
Yeah, this one's just using it as a partial because
Yeah.
they're adding a heat pump to their house, but they're going to keep their existing system, but they're integrating it they're integrating the heat pump into their existing system. So they'll end up getting, I think it's it's like $12.50 a ton, and they have a 1.5 ton machine, but it ends up shaking out to like 17,000 BTUs, so it shakes out to like whatever, just over like $2,000, say. So $2,000 on a $10,000 job is pretty solid. It's 20% all said and done.
Yeah.
But we did one last week. It's ironic too because 1 in every 10 installations on mass saves under mass saves criteria has potential. 1 in 10 they inspect. They have a person come out and check it out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So we just finished this job last week. Customer's house, fully ducted attic, with 2 heads on the main floor, to a hyperheat branch box. The job came out absolutely flawless. Nick ran the job over there. Totally crushed it. The ductwork came out beautiful. He put up a couple of reels on his Instagram, so everyone check that out.
He was loving it.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the Seashore reels. We did a couple Seashore reels last week of those, and just the ductwork came out beautiful. The piping was all spot on. There was a chunk of fortress going down the side of the house. It was probably about 18, 20 feet vertical, dead straight. The customer was very particular about anything that was on the outside of the house, so we had to make sure everything was dead perfect. We do every time, but it was just like, I triple checked it like a couple times.
The client's going to say something, even if it's off a little.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that all integrated with their boiler, so they'll have, heating the way that it's sized, they could literally heat their house down to about 9 degrees when they 70 degrees in the house down to 9 degrees outside with just the heat pumps. If they want to kick the boiler on, fantastic, but they literally could get the whole home rebate all said and done, which is up to 10 grand. It's like 3,000 a ton up to $10,000. So it's
So the rebate is in addition to the loan or separate from the loan? Are those two separate things?
no, they're two separate things. Yeah, Massave offers a 0% heat loan for up to 72 months, or even I think it's 84 months now. Sarah knows everything about the rebate stuff.
Yeah.
But 0% for 72, plus you can get the rebate. But so if you do end up getting the heat loan, they end up taking the rebate out of the heat loan.
I see.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you
yeah,
get
yeah.
a,
But
and
you
they
could still-
changed the amount of the heat loan. I think they had it at 50 grand, and I think they just bumped it down to 25 grand. But you can always get other home improvement loans and stuff like that with pretty decent rates.
Home equity
but
line
it
of
won't be
credit,
0%.
stuff like that. Yeah,
Exactly. It's like the 0%'s good because even if you have the cash, it's like keep the cash in the bank, make the interest on it, and then use the 0%
Yeah.
and pay that off whenever you're ready.
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
That's the move. But.
Which that's what I did. Was I just milked the loan as long as I could.
Right, exactly.
0%,
It's like
why not?
0%. Yeah, I'll take it. And it's
It's
not
free
like
money.
you're literally paying 0%. Just make sure you pay it off before it's time to start making payments because all the interest that you never paid is accrued onto it from that point.
So if you
to
wait
now.
the 85th month or whatever it was, 73rd month,
Right, exactly.
there's all that interest.
All the interest gets boom, dropped
Yeah,
right
yeah,
on
yeah.
top of it. So
Yeah.
you got like another million and a half bucks you got to spend. You know what I imagine? My God.
with taxes and whatever else they tack
Yeah,
onto
it would just end up being a nightmare. So yeah,
But yeah, that's a great
program.
program.
It is. It's
yeah.
excellent. And we've a lot of our customers take advantage of it as far as it's, your boiler is old, your furnaces are old. You want to change it out, but you don't want to put another furnace in because it's it's not efficient. It's not the best option. Plus, you don't have AC. So get rid of the furnace. Put the heat pumps in. You get plenty of heat for the winter. People are skeptical about the heat pumps in cold weather, but I can't say enough about one customer we have down in Magnolia. We took out his oil furnace. We put a fully ducted heat pump in. I don't think it even has an auxiliary backup electric heat kit. And the day we finished it was a Friday when we finished it. Then we had the weekend where it went down into, it was like 0 degrees or 4. I think it ended up going down to like 4 degrees.
Then add that
here.
wind chill and it gets like
It
crazy.
was freezing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the guy, I went there for the inspection. I think I've already told the story on the podcast, but it's like
It's a testament.
it's a testament, exactly. And he said, yeah, it was 70 degrees in here all weekend, and the thing was designed for 9. So once it got down to 5, you figure it would be 3 or 4 degrees below set point. If you have it set for 7, you'll probably be 66 in there because it's not designed for 4. But it did it. It carried it. The units, they're just powerhouses now. The way that they crank themselves as far as energy and they make a ton of heat.
I mean, when you think about it, like obviously you could just blanket statement and just say the technology's come so far, but it's more than just the hardware. It's also the refrigerant has come so far.
Yeah,
And I think people forget like the half of the battle is the refrigerant itself, and that has come a long way itself.
Yeah, it's like they started engineering the refrigerants based upon heat pumps as opposed to just for cooling purposes.
Right.
So compression ratios are still right in the same general area as the older refrigerants, but we get more performance out of them. We get more you end up getting more heat out of them with the engineering that's inside of the condensing units themselves, not just the refrigerant specifically, but the refrigerant management is huge
come a long
internally
way.
to these machines.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling when you look at the piping and you try to trace out how they were thinking and what they were doing in that, and then you can kind of figure it out and you go, wow, that's
Incredible.
crazy. Why would they even think to do that, unless it was a mistake and they said, "Wow, that worked. That's awesome. Let's stick with this."
I had that on a gig the other day where I was like, "Oh wait, that worked.
Yeah.
Let's do that again.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Do that twice.
Let's do that more."
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that HVAC guys are crazy. Like, right when I found out about the new refrigerants, I was like, "Oh, I can't wait to play with it. I can't wait to see what it does when you mess with it," type of thing.
Yeah.
If you can take a 3-ton unit, put it on a 1.5-ton unit, let's see how it reacts. And that's what people did. And that's it's just like with everything, I think. And even in like way back in the Stone Ages when they said, "Hey, look at these beans inside these cherries. Let's dry them out, roast them, and then make coffee with it." Who came up with that? Some
Right.
guy just came up with the idea. Let's try it. All right.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
So that's what HVAC guys do. We like to kind of
Tinker.
yeah, we like to play
You like to
around with
tinker.
this stuff.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I've been a tinkerer forever, so it's like
Yeah.
it just kind of happens.
And so, bringing it back to Mass Save, that's obviously very much residential. Is there a business component or business side to the Mass Save program?
Yeah, there absolutely is, and it's huge. And business owners really need to think about taking advantage of a lot of these rebates. Some of the rebates will pay up, they'll basically pay for the equipment all said and done. So it's a significant savings when it comes to some of these big projects. We have one project in Danvers, who has Danvers Municipal Light, but they have National Grid for gas. They ended up getting $100 and something thousand in rebates because they put in hybrid heat pump rooftops. It's like, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
You can still use a gas furnace in rooftops. You can use the hybrid heat pump, and you can have it so it switches between furnace and heat pump seamlessly, just like the residential units. Train is big on them right now. We're doing a lot of these Train hybrid heat pumps. We did one down at Gordon College in Hamilton a few months ago. Train rooftop, nice machine. I think it was a 15-tonner. Just ran flawlessly. So, and I think they got $45,000 or something, 40 grand, say, in rebates for putting the rooftop on.
So let's say I'm a business owner, or a facilities manager, or property manager, or I'm a residential homeowner.
Yep.
If I want to take advantage of the Mass Save programming, would you help walk them through that process?
Yeah, Sarah's well versed in all of it.
Yeah,
Julie's up to speed on it as well. So, any questions as far as rebates, rebate potential, stuff like that? Normally, we include rebate potential in the proposal. So if I'm sending over a quote, she'll say, the quote is $10,000 with a potential rebate of up to $4,500 or whatever it is. Just so the customer's aware of it. And then we also file for the rebates on their behalf, so they don't have to deal with any of the paperwork and stuff. That's the biggest thing is, there was a few things on the news where people were complaining about not getting their rebates, or, their rebates were being, rejected, stuff like that. Turns out they just probably filled the paperwork out incorrectly.
They missed a checkbox.
There you go. And we've done so many of them that, we just send them in and they say, okay, yep, this, boom, here's your rebate. And we see a turnaround on them relatively quick. And we haven't had anyone not get a rebate, which is, is a great thing. I know there was one unit that was at Gordon College that was spec'd by an engineer, and that one didn't qualify. It ended up, we put it in and everything, and then he's like, "Oh, can you send me over the AHRI for it?" And I was like, "Yeah, they don't have an AHRI for that one. It doesn't qualify." And he goes, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I was like, "Well, you spec'd it to me. I figured you did your homework. I didn't look into rebates or anything on that. That was all his gig. I just was there to do the install."
Yeah.
So it ended up being like, okay, well, I guess that's that. So he lost out on, I don't know,
On
probably
one
would have
unit.
been like $2,000 or something like that. It would have been a ton of dough, but at the end of the day, it's still cash. I'll
got a
take
lot.
$2,000.
Yeah, of course,
you want
in
to hand it
today's
to me?
economy.
I'll take it. No doubt.
Well, that's why, as a homeowner that took advantage of the program, I can't stress enough, reach out to Sarah and Julie in the office, ask them about the Mass Save program, and just, if you know you have an old system that you're just, Band-Aiding to life, look into it. It's just so worth it. Like, there's no reason not to. And when Seashore does it, you just know it gets done right. You don't have to worry about it afterwards.
Yeah, it's I kind of came up with this thing. I think it was last week when I wasn't happy with the way that I ended up putting something in, and I ended up taking it all out and changing it, and and the customer was like, well, why did you change it? And I was like, well, I wouldn't have done that if I was doing it in my house, so I'm not going to leave it at your house. That's so the thing with our guys is that they aren't going to do something that they wouldn't do in their house,
Yeah.
and other people do. Other people will be like, oh yeah, I'll just smash through that. I'm not, it doesn't matter. It's in the basement. And no one's going to see that. And it's, well, we still make it look good because it's like if you buy something brand new, you want it to look brand new. So
Yeah.
that's our big thing.
Yeah. Well, so if anyone has any questions, Sarah and Julie will help with the rebates. If they want to geek out, the mad scientist across
Yeah.
the way here,
Yeah,
Ringles.
Yeah, I can't help as far as rebates and stuff goes, but when it comes to like sizing your stuff up and
Yeah.
everything, I'm all over it. I'm huge on doing my scans now. I have my new software that's it's saving me so much time, and it's just so efficient when it comes to you can do square footage, cubic footage. It'll draw a 3D map of the whole interior of the house for me, including furniture and everything,
Yeah.
to pretty much to the inch, I'd say, maybe to 2 inches. It's pretty close.
Yeah, that's incredible.
But it gives me a place to look back to when I'm pricing everything up, so I can say, okay, a head's going to go here, or I'm going to put the condenser back on the northwest corner, and then I'll keep the the head on this back wall, and my fortress is going to be this long because I know the exact lengths. It's huge. So that's my newest favorite thing. That's kind of keeping me
Efficient.
up to speed. Yeah,
And
exactly.
efficient,
Yeah,
like, to save
efficient.
time.
Efficiency
Yeah,
is
that's
huge.
so- yeah.
It's literally 3-4 hours per job that I'm saving, so I can punch out more stuff. That's my big thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, anything else you want to cover, or do we think this is a good podcast here?
I think this is an excellent podcast. It's, it went
We
smooth.
got to get Sarah in here.
Yeah, we'll get Sarah in here. We're gonna get Frank back in here. Frank loves
Yeah.
loves coming in,
Yeah.
and he's excellent. He's a good talker, and
And he knows HVAC. He knows the stuff.
He knows the stuff. That's the
Yeah.
big thing. Is
Yeah.
and I could talk to anybody that knows the stuff.
Yeah.
You get me going and forget it.
If you could talk to me, and I know very little stuff, then
Yeah, but
you could talk to anybody.
You were trained more in the industry though, as far as the business as a whole,
Yeah,
not so
yeah.
much as the tech stuff.
Right,
But you get it.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
of
mean.
course.
You've seen all the stuff. So
I
it's
saw
like-
it for 6 years.
Exactly.
I should get it.
Yeah, you should. You should. And it's like a lot of the stuff you won't forget. The proper the proper pronunciations of things, and the way you
And just a general
You show yourself.
understanding. Like, just having a general understanding of the system, which so many people don't have.
right.
Heat pumps versus, just regular, furnaces versus obviously boilers for the wet heat. Like, a lot of people just don't have an understanding of these systems.
Right.
Which obviously we hope to tackle more
No,
as we go
definitely.
along.
And we
Yeah.
got to talk too, because we can probably still get you some killer rebates for doing heat pumps in your house, integrating them with your boiler and stuff. So
Yeah.
we'll definitely talk about that. You definitely
Absolutely.
get a good price.
Yeah, awesome.
Excellent. Well, definitely check us out on YouTube. We'll be putting some reels up and everything, in the next few weeks. And if you ever need anything as far as streaming or video services, anything like that, make sure you get in touch with Andrew. He's my boy. Streamography out of Gloucester is number one as far as I'm concerned. It's top notch. So everyone treats me like a king over here, and it's excellent.
King Wriggles.
That's right, brother.
We can't let Sarah hear that.
Yeah. All right. No. Yeah. Yeah. No,
Thank you,
I won't
everybody.
tell her. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you.